Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our dear brother, and the message that he sent to us, it reads like this. Hello, how are you? Can you please post my own story as anonymous? So my confession, it goes on like this. It all started, this was after my parents had passed away. My parents, they both died in a horrific car accident. That is when I chose to become an occultist, because I used to go to church. I would pray, I would do everything, thinking that if I was a good Christian, then God was going to help me out, because I was still at university at that time when I started thinking, like really thinking about it. So I would go on a fasting period, but still, even after doing that, what they call Daniel's fasting and praying, but still my situation was not changing. And I said that it is far much better for me to be an occultist. It is not something that I am proud of, but it is the truth. I never imagined my life would take this path, but greed and desperation led me to make choices that haunt me each and every single day. You see, I sacrificed my own sister for power and for wealth, and in return, I lost everything that really mattered the most to me. I grew up in Lagos, here in Nigeria, in a small, modest home. My parents, when they were still alive, they worked hard to give me and my young sister a very decent life, but we never had much. From a young age, I was hungry for more and more money, more success, more of everything, while my sister was content with the simple life that we had. I was always looking for shortcuts to success, and that was where my downfall began, because I had seen that poverty is not a nice thing. I used to see how my father was always working, never at home, always working and never finding rest. As for my mom, she was a woman who used to pray. Sometimes I would see that the reason as to why my mom would go on a fasting period, it will be because there was no food that was enough for all of us. So my mother would choose to be on a fasting period, but it did not change anything. So from that age, when I started to understand that poverty is a sin, I started to hate poverty. And whenever I would hear my mom saying that we need to pray, I would find it to be very irritating. In my early 20s, after struggling for years to make a living, I fell in with the wrong crowd. I started spending time with men who seemed to have it all, wealth and money. They drove really beautiful cars and they were living in huge mansions, and they had connections that opened doors for them almost everywhere. One man in particular stood out. I'll call him Ikena, not his real name. He was charming and he was magnetic, the kind of a person who was always commanding respect. Everyone was always talking about how he had come into his fortune so suddenly, but no one ever said it out loud because he was really wealthy. This man was making a lot of money. So at that time, when I started communicating with him, he seemed to take a liking to me, and before long, we started hanging out. He invited me to his parties and he introduced me to some people whom he told me that since they were influential people, they could get me a job, I could get hired. And as long as these people were my friends, my life was going to be okay. And he slowly drew me into his world. I was dazzled by the luxury that he lived in, the effortless way that he navigated life. I wanted that for myself, but it was not long before I realized that his wealth did not come from hard work or luck. It was granted to him by the gods, not the God that you know. One night after a particularly extravagant party, Ikena pulled me aside and he was like, "You know, my man, you have been looking for a way to change your life, right? To make real money, to never have to worry again." I nodded, feeling that familiar hunger rise in my chest. "Of course," I replied. "Would I not want that opportunity if it presents itself to me?" He said as he was lowering his voice, "What if I told you there is a way to make all of your dreams come true, to have more money that you could ever imagine? But what if this money that you are going to get, you have to sacrifice something? Are you willing to sacrifice anything?" I did not understand at first, but the more that Ikena talked, the clearer it became. He was part of an occultic group, a secret society that used rituals and sacrifices to gain money. He explained that this was not just about performing a few rituals, it was a deep spiritual bond with the forces that ruled the unseen world. In exchange for blood sacrifices, the spirits would grant me a lot of wealth, but they did not want just anyone's blood. They wanted the blood of someone that was really close to me, someone who meant everything to me. I was really horrified by the idea of sacrificing another person, let alone someone that I truly loved. It was just too much for me. I tried to laugh it off, thinking that maybe it was a joke, but he was serious. He told me how the spirits had blessed him after his own sacrifice and how his life had changed overnight. He warned that this path was not for the faint-hearted, but assured that the rewards would be worth the cost. For weeks, I wrestled with the idea. I kept telling myself that I could not do it, that I would not cross that line. But every day, when I saw Ikena's wealth, his easy life, I could not help but feel envy. The pressure of struggling every day for crumbs weighed heavily on me. The dreams of fast cars and having any woman that I was going to want in this world. And I said that this is what I wanted, and it overshadowed my morality, the little morality that I still had in my heart. So the occult group Ikena was part of, it was not a small-time operation. It was a highly tight-knit circle of wealthy businessmen, aspiring politicians, even aspiring celebrities. They were powerful and they had a lot of influence, controlled a lot of companies. And being part of the group means that I have a never-ending chain of opportunities that will come my way. It was during one of those secret gatherings that was when I was introduced to the others. He took me to a large, isolated mansion where I met the men who were all part of this brotherhood. They were dressed in traditional robes, chanting prayers in languages that I did not understand. I felt out of place, terrified of what I was getting myself into. At the center of the room was an altar, and on it there were some symbols and candles that were burning, and blood. This was fresh, I was told, God's blood, not human blood. I was feeling scared, but I said, let me dive deep into this, for there was no more turning back. The leader of the group approached me and asked if I was ready to make any sacrifice, and at that moment I froze. All that I could think about was my sister. She was my closest family, the one person who had been by my side through everything. She trusted me completely, and that's what made her the perfect sacrifice. The spirits demanded something personal, something that would bind me to them forever. So at that time, when I was told that I had to sacrifice my sister, the guilt hit me hard, but I wanted money at the same time. I convinced myself that I had no other choice, even though I knew that if I could turn back to God, at least I would be poor, but my sister will be alive. I took my sister to an isolated area, telling her that it was a special day, a chance for us to visit a place that our mother had always told us that once she gets money, she wanted us to have our house there. She trusted me. I led her into the ritual space, and when we were there, that was when they kidnapped her. So what was needed was that she had to be placed inside a coffin, and from that coffin, she was never going to recover. They placed her inside that coffin, and then the healer started sprinkling some charms on her, and I saw my sister as she was like breathing her last. And after that, they took her into a car, then they dumped her almost in the middle of nowhere, close to a highway. She was picked up by another stranger. We could see her in the mirror. That stranger rushed with her to the hospital. That was when she recovered a little bit. She only said my name and how the nurses could get in touch with me. And then she collapsed and fell into a coma. I then went to the hospital where she was, but by the time that I got there, I knew that she was already dead. And then the sacrifice was over. That is how I have made my money. There are many nights when I wake up and I feel like sometimes my sister will be there with me. So all that I want to tell people out there is like, yeah, being a Christian, you indeed face some challenges. You feel like you are facing those challenges alone, but at least you know that there is a God that is forgiving. As for some of us, we do serve this God that shows no mercy. Right now, if I am to be told that I have to go out there, kidnap someone, get that person killed, if I fail to do that, then it means that it will be the end of my life. So if you can post my story, you can tell me and I will follow through in the comment section. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear brother. If you have any confession that you want to share with us, please feel free to come to my WhatsApp and share with me your own confession.